Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. I'm your host, Christy Eibenhuber. Welcome to Mirage Talk. Today, we bring to you a skilled communications expert for global brands and startups. She has the ability to shape and tell compelling stories, strong editorial skills, and proven crisis management skills. She is the head of social communications for Amdocs. And to touch on the subject today, social media role in companies' identity. We welcome Ayana Gitzer. Ayana, how are you doing today? Welcome.
Hi, thank you for this introduction. It's familiar. I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Let's get started.
Let's get started. So I'll start by sharing my screen. Et voila. So a social media role in the company's identity. Let's jump right into it. Work for it. As we're all about social this evening or this morning for you guys, I urge you to open your mics. And if someone wants to open hers or his camera, it would be great. And even more, I welcome you to have your cell phones next to you as we are talking about social media. And just to kick off the session, does any of you recognize the lovely lady on screen? Yes. Good. Do you know why am I starting this session with the wonderful Kylie Jenner? So, a very impactful saying by Kylie had led to quite an impactful role of things. So Kylie had tweeted the below quote and had caused a stock to drop in almost 8%. So I guess we are about 2 minutes into the session, and I think we kind of answered the question that we're handling. I guess after this tweet and what happened after it, we all understand why social media is important for a brand and how impactful it is. So we can either wrap up the session now, or we can enjoy the 43 minutes left and continue with another wonderful lady. And we don't have tons of participants, so I don't expect any answers. You can just nod, but does any of you recall their single days, or maybe she or he is still single? Let's get back to this moment of us looking for love. And please think or kind of capture what it is the most often thing that you do when someone introduces you to someone, either in an app or a friend. I'll answer for you. We all become a Mossad a person immediately going into the net, into the social media, and looking for evidence and looking and searching for how real this person is, what she or he is all about, and it's all out there. So I'm kind of thinking if any of you lovely participants, although we are not about to date, did something a little bit like that before showing up to this session with me. Did any of you looked me up on social media? Oh, yes. So we do that, and it's a norm right now nowadays to do that. It's important to do that before any occasion, a business meeting, a network occasion, a panel discussion. it's very valuable what we can find online about the people that we're about to meet. It means something. So for those who haven't done so, in regards to me, we're talking about social media, and I'll go back to the fact that social media starts with social and then media. So let's start by being social, and whoever is yet connected with me on social, please do so. This is only a 45-minute session, but I'm guessing that we'll have much to share and contribute to one another in the future. So this is me. I'm Ayana. I've been in the communication industry for, I'd say, almost 20 years. I've been living and working in different parts of the world, from Tel Aviv to Italy, back to Tel Aviv, to New York, Tel Aviv, Paris, Senegal, and back to Tel Aviv. US, of course, not just New York, but been out there. And now I'm based in Tel Aviv. And in the past 3.5 years, I've been leading communications, social communications for Amdocs, which I hope at least most of you know. So social media and how important it is nowadays. I guess we can all agree that social media had been around for quite a while, but it wasn't always as impactful as it is today. So what happened that made social media so impactful and leading us, the users, to be in the narrator position? Again, a question to you guys. Do you recognize this picture and have any idea why I chose to put it here? Silence. So I actually chose a picture that is from the press and not from the social media channels, because the images from social images, videos, etc., were too blunt, especially nowadays. I didn't want to create any emotional effect with anyone. But I'll bring you back to November 2015, the terror attacks that had happened in Paris in 3 different places during the same evening. And this is a dramatic event in terms of media and how things had shifted. So what happened at the night of November 15, in November 2015, was that the French government had forbidden the traditional media to share any footage from the events themselves. And basically throughout the night, as the terror attacks were happening and continue to happen in real time, people on television, radio, correspondents all over Paris were just talking without showing anything and really respecting the embargo that the government had gave them. But at the same time, the victims at the Bataclan, a music theater, had live tweeted live videos from the terror attack as it happened. And by that, things had shifted, because people in the place itself became the correspondents who broadcasted live news. And as hours went by and the embargo was still on, the news channels had chosen to reshare what was shared on social media, and by that, things had shifted. So if up until that moment, it was very custom that the traditional media had received the news and social media had followed, things had changed. About the same timing, other things had happened in the world. I guess you guys know Trump very well, a politician that doesn't count on journalists to offer him the space to share his opinions, and definitely took the narrator position with his social channels and created a lot of fuss. So that was a real turning point, and it led us to a place where it's very clear that we, the social media users, are the narrators of our stories. We are a real life journalists. Any questions so far? Comments? Cool. So things had shifted. The media ecosystem had changed from a media ecosystem that was considering traditional media as the main and almost only source. The world had shifted, and brands had understood how impactful their audience on social media is. And by saying audience, I mean many different crowds of people that can affect a brand. So just to throw a couple, it can be investors, it can be clients, consumers, talents, future talents. And I guess we all have in mind more than a dozen brands that we follow on social and that we appreciate the content that they share in social. So the question is, what makes the brand stand out? And that is after we all understood that social media means tons for that. So when we think about this question, I offer to have a look at three different pillars. So we have the brand, we have the brand leadership, and we have the brand talents. And when I say talents, I mean talents that the brand already holds, so the employees, and future talents, the talents that we hope that someday would become one of ours. And in my opinion, the correlation between those three pillars is what exactly what makes the brand stands out. So often when we talk about communications, there's a certain word that's constantly being used, and this is authenticity. I guess you've all heard many people talk about what authenticity is all about, and just I can say for me personally, I can no longer hear this word, but this is what comes is a really important thing for a brand to stand out. And authenticity is being captured when there's alliance among those three pillars. So the brand, its leaders, and its people stands for the same values and amplifies the same messaging. So I chose three different companies that started their social journey very differently. So in the middle, we have Monday.com. I guess you know them. Monday.com is one of the most successful Israeli startups. Now it's no longer a startup, but a kicking lively company that was born into the social era. We have Nice, that was considered to be a very boring company. No one really understood what they're doing. But then the company had gotten a new CEO that was because he just resigned, very blunt, very out there with his opinions, and totally shifted the company's vision and social and communication strategy. And we have Amdocs, the company that I work for, and everything that we've done in the past couple of years. Again, Amdocs is a company that is a little bit over 40. Us 40 plus people doesn't really like to say exactly our birth date, but obviously we didn't start in the social era. So we had to learn and to experiment, and we've come a long way. So again, brand, leaders, talents, they all need to be aligned and to amplify one another. Let's dive into Monday.com. Again, any questions before I continue? Perfect. Monday.com is a company, is a pretty young company that was born into the social era, and social and communications, marketing communications were taking into consideration as the company built itself. One of the strongest values of the company is transparency. And this value is being very much out there in their social strategy. So it always out there in a sense that the behind the scenes are in the center, are in the front. The discussions, the failure, the learnings are what is being presented on social, but in a way that transmit leadership. So Monday.com own their story, own the narrative of being a pioneer, of being innovator by showing the behind the scenes and how from experimenting, innovation occurs. Not only that they've been very much out there on the common social channels such as Instagram, LinkedIn, X, etc., they've wisely decided to create their own podcast where they share insights with market leaders, with follow startups. It's called Startup for Startup, very interesting. And of course, you can, and of course, those podcasts are being also videoed and showcased in other social channels. So with that, not only that, the company is telling a 360 kind of story, presenting its talents, the behind the scenes, people who create the success. They also invite the ecosystem to their home, and by that showing leadership. So transparency, leadership throughout the different pillars create an authentic voice and tone and a strong message. Here we can see some examples of what I've just shared. So you can see the consistency throughout the different channels and throughout the different initiatives. So it's always around the same values and always putting people in the center with the real experience of the behind the scenes. Nice. So as we can see in the share in the print screen that I've just copied here, it's all about its people. But not only, there is one person who really stands out, and it's the CEO, Barak Elam. I'll ask and I'll give the answer. Did any of you recall any story about Barak, any highlights from the past couple of years? So at least in Israel, Barak had been very much out there in the press and in the different social channels because of his blunt and very out there opinions. You have right here on the left one example, but it's just one. The same kind of spirit was being transmitted throughout the different social channels and throughout the different communications initiatives that the company had created and shared. We can see, for example, a very outstanding commercial that was shared.
Oh, there's no sound, Ariana.
So we'll stop right here, but I guess up until this short minute, you can really see how outstanding this commercial is and how not obvious for a brand such as Nice. And this is exactly the spirit of the CEO. When we're talking about the pillar of the employees, for their annual events, it's always with the live events are always accompanied by a famous persona that is not the obvious one. So here is an example with Nicole Kidman, but it's always for the employees to get them to think out of the box, to be out there. So you can only imagine how it's being shared on social. So again, being blunt, being courageous, being loyal to your values is something that is being consistent throughout the different pillars and throughout the different channels of communications. Sorry. Oh, my favorite, Amdocs. So Amdocs, any questions before? None. Does any of you know Amdocs, or is it just me that is so excited? Cool, Ellie. So Amdocs is a company with over 30,000 employees worldwide that was established over 40 years ago and started as Yellow Pages. How crazy is that? A company that now is all about services to the biggest telco communications companies around the world, started with a yellow book. So imagine how many transformations we've gone through. A company that is a very B2B centric, has the tendency to, had the tendency, many of us B2B companies, grown up companies, had a tendency to kind of neglect the social communications tools in a way of thinking that we're not talking to consumers. Luckily for us at Amdocs, we realized pretty fast that at the end of the day, everything is personal. And even the person who decide about if he or she are going to push this or that behind the scenes system has its own values and way of thinking, and we need to be there. We need to be a part of this conversation. So we've gone through quite a route to where we are today, which is also just the beginning of our journey. So when we talk about communications and social communications at Amdocs, the strategy for us is putting people in the center. And when I'm saying people, I mean communities. So in our social strategy, to create this alignment between the brand, its values, its people, to get to an impact on the audiences that we care about, we establish different communities that we educate, empower, and support throughout their social journey. So the first community is the leadership community, which has actually started as a very small, very high level leaders and grown into a wider leadership community because of the realization of the people who actually impact people within the company. So here you can see our CFO, Tamar Rapaport-Dagim, and COO. You can see Samit, one of our top leaders from India that has almost half of our worldwide employees. And in the right-hand corner, you can see Naval. Naval is a part of a very, very unique community that we lead, the Ambassadors Club community. Now, the only community that you don't see here in the slide are the talents community, but I'll get to it next. So as I mentioned before, leadership through communities means for us education and engagement and empowerment and support. let's dive into the Ambassadors Club community. We'll get to that later. And we'll start with this video. Right.
Iona, your audio is not on.
Ayana, the audio of the video is, we can't hear it.
I'm sorry?
We cannot hear the audio of the video.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so we can pause right here and go back to the presentation. So basically, what you just saw, and I'll share the link so everyone in the session can view it, or again, you can just follow Amdocs on Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and see it by, over there. You saw just a short recap of our Ambassadors Club in India. Our Ambassador Club in India has over 80 ambassadors based in 2 different sites, in Pune and in New Delhi. And as I mentioned, the first thing that we do with the ambassadors is educate them. So in the base of this Ambassadors Club, there's the Social Academy. The Social Academy is a 6-month academy where we host educational sessions from the most impactful people from each location on social, to educate our community on how to do social in the best and most innovative way out there. So from sessions in regards to content writing and storytelling, to sessions on videography and how to take the best pictures, into how to use generative AI for your social strategy. Our ambassadors had a monthly meeting and workshops to get them to the best place they can be. Those sessions, their goal is to have this community as a community that creates high-level content that can be shared and that can inspire others in the company. So not only that the ambassadors understand the company's values from the leadership sessions that they have, which is quite unique for such a small group of people to meet, for example, with the CFO for a session, but they highly value what they get from those sessions and from this academy and from this community for their own personal brand. And this is something that is very important to note. When we work with communities, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, why should they care? And the answer is because there's a correlation between the brand that you represent and your personal brand. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. It works for for where we work at. So if you are a part of a strong, successful organization, it says something about your personal brand, and vice versa. This is why we as a brand care about how our talents behave on the social platforms. It impacts our corporate brand as well. And how to do that is going back to the basics. And I'm going back to where we started. So we constantly say social media, but we often forget the social part, and we focus only on the media. But social is first. So again, always remember that the first thing that you need to consider is your audience, who you're talking to. And we'll get there shortly, but just another sentence about the ambassadors community and the employees advocacy platform and plans and communities that we have at Amdocs. As I said, we care about what the talent, what the person gains, and not just what the brand gains. And after almost a year of working with the communities, the participants are aligned, and they're aligned because they see how those communities impact their own personal brand. So engagement is up, followers are up, and the skills are being perfected. So we feel it's the right way to go. And I encourage anyone here who has any questions or has any curiosity to learn more to reach out to me. I'd love to share more. I see that we are almost there. So as I said before, the first question on how to do that for your personal brand, but also for your professional brand, is to always think about your audience. After you understand who your audience is it your investors? Is it your employees? Is it your clients? Then you choose the platform. If it's for your investors, you should choose X or LinkedIn. If it's your employees, definitely go to Instagram and LinkedIn. But the channel is very important to reach to the audience that you aim to. I often get a disclaimer from the people that I work with. They always say, but I don't have a story. He said it first. Everyone heard about it. It's not interesting. Well, guess what? In front of us, there's a person who built his career about telling a story about nothing, about people who goes to a coffee shop to eat cornflakes, cereal. So I guess you don't always have to have an outstanding story. You need to know what your aim is, who do you want to impact, and tell it in the most authentic way possible. And guess what? As mentioned before, authentic is a really nice word, but being authentic is kind of complicated nowadays. We have some tricks. You can go to your ChatGPT, right on your cell phone, define exactly the prompt. Who do you want to reach to? What is your story? And what's the action item that you want to give them? And even, give them the voice of tone of Jerry Seinfeld, if he's the person that you feel like can represent you, and you'll get the post in the same voice of tone like Jerry Seinfeld. So you don't have to do it by yourself. And again, as mentioned before, don't forget to be social. You feel insecure, you feel that maybe the strategy is not clear, ask someone who you appreciate hers or his opinion, your colleagues, your team. Social should be fun, and social is not forever. You can modify, you can change, you can try out with just a very close community, see if it works, and then open it for the rest of your followers. And again, at the end of the day, we have a tendency to think about ourselves. How do we look? But the biggest trick is to think about who we're talking to. What do they care about? And then the story is being shaped totally differently and much more effectively. So I guess this is it from my end. I think that we covered why should we care, both as people who works for brands, but also for us and our personal brand. We talked a little bit about how brand strategy is being built on social. I gave you my strategy that is all about communities and people empowerment. And I gave you also a couple tricks on how to do that in an easy and very effective way. And yes, I think this is it. So unless you have any other questions.
And Ayana, I have a question. So do you have a team that do social at Amdocs, as the company is so big, and you have like a person in charge of this social media network and another person and another, or how does it work?
So it's a very, I love this question because the story about my team is very funny, because I've started my social team as a one-person act, followed by another person, followed by two others. So already almost a global team, followed by 29 GMs that I've created when I created the GMs community, and followed by another 42 ambassadors from Israel, another 83 ambassadors from India, another 32 leadership members around the world. So I consider my team for over 100 people right now. But to be very truthful, I have a team of 5 people around the world that is being in charge of the corporate channels. So we have a corporate strategy for the faceless accounts, so the accounts with the brand logo. And I have another team member that is leading the communities, and other team members that are leading special projects that are across all communications fields.
Thanks.
Anything else?
Do we have any additional questions for Ayana? Okay. Well, on that note, Ayana, thank you for your presentation. It was amazing. I appreciate you taking the time today to enlighten our Mirage tribe on behalf of Paul Mirage and the Mirage Institute. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And thank you everyone for joining.